Burton Septuagint translation, it says, "For I will have mercy rather than sacrifice, and the knowledge of Elohim rather than whole burnt offerings." Now, just so you know, there's a lot of translations that will say, "I desire mercy and not sacrifice," but literal translations, they are very clear. It's not that he doesn't require sacrifice. He says mercy or compassion rather than sacrifice. So this is another thing that Yahusha is having us understand has not just been the case in this specific instance with the Shabbat, but has always been the case. Yah has always expected compassion in replacement for sacrifice. In fact, if you think about what was actually happening in that moment, so we have number one, Yahusha's apostles, they were taking grain and eating it from the field. They were hungry. That's not what it says, but based on the story that he tells to combat the Pharisees, these are people who were hungry and were doing something basically to satisfy their hunger. What does Yahusha say? Well, David, whenever he saw that his men were hungry, he had compassion on them. And not just he had compassion on them, the priest had compassion on them and gave David and his men the sacred bread. So this is compassion, despite the fact that, yes, it was not lawful to eat the sacred bread. They had compassion on them and allowed it, understanding that ultimately that is a service to Yahuwah. The last thing that Yahusha is explaining to us is that technically, if you want to go technical, the word for work, there's always been people who have been allowed to work on the Sabbath. They were people who were Yah's priests, meaning people whose work was to Yahuwah. So that's another thing that the Pharisees missed. When you're talking about doing the work of Yahuwah, this is not work in the sense that you rest from this work. We are always doing the work of Yahuwah. We're always doing what we need to do to make sure that his name is glorified. All right, so to summarize, number one, Yahusha, again, he always kept the Shabbat. He never nullified Yah's Shabbat. Any scripture that someone wants to cite to make it sound like it, I promise you, it's a lie. Ask them to specifically cite a scripture where Yahusha, or one of the prophets, nullify the Shabbat. We know Yah does not change. His word is going to outlast earth. Heaven and earth might pass away, but his word will not pass away. So we know that people trying to do that are trying to confuse you. Number two, Yahusha taught us that it's always been lawful to do good on the Shabbat. It's always been lawful to show compassion. And in fact, Yahuwah desires compassion rather than sacrifice. And number three, we know that Yahusha is teaching us that always it has been lawful to do work to Yahuwah on the Shabbat, to do work at the temple, to do work through your ministry, whatever work Yah has directed you to do on the Shabbat, it's always lawful to do that.